So the name of this game is Water Me, and from what I read, it's an experiment in loneliness. Something about me being confined to my home, and my only friend is a plant, and I have to wait out some type of event. So I don't know. Congratulations, you're a new plant parent. It's your job to nurture your new friend. What will you name it? Our new plant is Nad Satchel. Let there be light. Okay. Prune the leaves. Fill the glass. In for news.
For South Carolina Public Radio, this is South Carolina Focus. I'm Tut Underwood. Hunting the many wild hogs that have proliferated in South Carolina is exciting to dogs. Wild hogs have excited farmers too, for a bad reason. Noel Myers of the U.S. Department of Agriculture says about 160,000 wild hogs now roam the state's 46 counties and calls them an invasive species.
They cause a lot of damage to agriculture, natural resources. They compete with other native wildlife like deer for food, acorns, things like that. And they also affect a lot of things like archaeological sites, endangered species like loggerhead sea turtles. They'll dig up the nest and eat the turtle eggs. So there's a lot of impacts that these animals do cause to South Carolina.
Myers says wild hogs annually cause an estimated $1.5 billion in damage nationwide. State figures are still being compiled, but Donnie Wakefield of Aiken County, who says wild hogs cost him $30,000 to $50,000 a year in damage, has one word for the way they've affected his farm.
Devastation from start to finish. As soon as you plant a field, they can come in there and root up your seed, eat your seed right down the row. They'll go in there and just tear your fields up and just root them up. Makes it hard to work. Makes it hard to work your land.
Wakefield has lived with the problem for decades, but he's seen a dramatic increase in hog herds, called sounders, in recent years.
Used to be we'd have a sounder with 8 or 10 pigs. Now we're seeing them with, anywhere from 25 to 35 in a sounder. So it's becoming quite a problem, and there's not just one sounder. I mean, there's 3 or 4 sounders working the same area.
Fencing 10,000 acres of farmland is impractical, says Wakefield. He fights the hogs with technology, including cameras and drones to locate the hogs and survey the destruction. The ruts caused by rooting and wallowing hogs are so deep that it damages farm equipment. Walking where hogs have wallowed and eaten, Wakefield says damage to cornfields is measured not just in what they eat, but in what they waste.
Cornfields, they'll get in there, knock the whole corn stalk down, take one bite out of it, and move on to the next one.
Driving over his farm, Wakefield says hogs even interfere with hunting by eating food put out to lure deer.
They'll go to each little food plot, eat the corn or whatever we have out for the deer, and they just do a complete circle all the way around in certain areas of the farm. What we're pulling up to now is a sunflower field, and when we get up there, you can see all the rootings, like right there to the left. All that had nothing but corn out there yesterday, and it's all gone. They just keep going around and around and around, eating it up about as fast as we put it out.
Wakefield traps around 300 wild pigs each year and still can't keep up with the increasing invasion. Myers says there's a reason for that.
If you have one male and one female born in a sow, within 1 year you'll have 25. That's how prolific they are. And to really have an impact on managing the overall population, you have to remove 70 to 90% of that population to actually start to see a decrease or stabilize the population from continuing to grow.
Myers says wild hogs may be hunted year-round in the daytime on private property. He offers one silver lining to the problem. If cooked properly, these animals, like other game species, are perfectly safe to eat. This SC Focus report also can be heard on SouthCarolinaPublicRadio.org. With South Carolina Focus, I'm Tut Underwood for South Carolina Public Radio.
Did you guys learn something? Yeah.
For South Carolina Public Radio, this is South.
Talk to. What do you say? Hello, gorgeous. Sometimes I feel like you really get me. Look how healthy you look. I am a plant wizard. How about, hello, gorgeous. You really get me? I'm waiting for something to happen, dudes. I have no idea. Maybe the news will tell us something? I don't know.
For South Carolina Public Radio, this is South Carolina Focus. I'm Tut Underwood. Hunting the many wild hogs.
Nope. Well, what is supposed to be happening here? I'm so fucking confused. Oh, next day. Okay. So what happens if I listen to the music?
Hi, I'm Laura Huntsberger, and you're listening to South Carolina Focus. With me here today is Matthew Whitehouse, the Observatory Manager for the South Carolina State Museum. So Matthew, if I have this right, a lunar eclipse is when the sun, earth, and moon line up with each other so that the earth casts a shadow on the moon. But this eclipse is called a super eclipse. What does that mean?
So I should backtrack by saying that all lunar eclipses happen when the moon is full. So this is a so-called supermoon eclipse, and all that really means is that this particular full moon, when the eclipse is happening, is when the moon is closest to the Earth in its orbit. So because of this, when the moon is a so-called supermoon, it actually can appear slightly bigger in our sky, not dramatically bigger. So if you're looking up on a supermoon or for the supermoon eclipse and you're expecting the moon to look really, really big in the sky, it's actually not going to. It's only going to look slightly bigger. In fact, it may not really be noticeable.
Like my
what
penis.
makes this supermoon special this time, though?
So in this case, we have this kind of convergence of events, a supermoon, and an eclipse happening at the same time, a lunar eclipse happening at the same time. This eclipse starts a few minutes after 9 p.m. The moon will start going into the Earth's shadow, and we'll begin to see that encroachment on the moon. The eclipse peaks at around 10:47 p.m., so just before 11 p.m. we'll be at maximum eclipse. At that point, the moon will be a very distinct red color. And then as we approach midnight, the eclipse will start to wind down. We'll start seeing the shadow go away. The moon will stop being so red. And that'll actually be kind of a gradual process as we pass the maximum eclipse and go towards midnight.
Now, can you tell me why it turns a red color?
Okay, so these eclipses are often called blood moons. And the reason for this is that even though you've got the Earth in the way, blocking the light from the sun from reflecting off the moon, a little bit of sunlight actually filters through Earth's atmosphere. And Earth's atmosphere blocks out all the wavelengths of light except for red light. So this red light, the small amount of red light from the sun, filters through our atmosphere, and it reflects off the moon, and it turns the moon this very distinct red color.
So the Earth's atmosphere is kind of like a prism that only casts red light, and that hits the moon and makes it look red.
Right. The Earth's atmosphere.
Hey, I got
is
educated. I didn't know that.
And like a filter. It's not letting shorter wavelengths of light through. It's scattering them out, blocking them off, and only letting that red light through.
So will people in their backyards be able to see that nice red color?
Yes. If you happen to be out on a Sunday night and look up, you will see this.
What about people in the city? Because I know sometimes when there's a lot of light in the city, you can't see it as well. Will that be a factor?
For an eclipse, light pollution in the city actually isn't a factor. We worry about light pollution when we're looking at very faint things like galaxies and nebulae, faint, distant objects, which is why observatories that do a lot of research tend to be located away from cities. But for an eclipse, actually in the middle of the city, you will get a beautiful view. We're not concerned about light pollution.
That's great. Now, the museum is going to have a viewing event on Sunday night in partnership with the Midlands Astronomy Club. They'll have some telescopes set up, and can you tell me what people will be able to see through the telescopes?
The moon.
Midlands Astronomy Club will have small telescopes set up at the museum front entrance. And then we'll have our big telescope, our Alvin Clark telescope, in the museum observatory up and running. And in the small telescopes, the view will tend to be more of the whole moon. It'll be what we call a wider field of view. You'll see the entire moon in those smaller telescopes. In our large telescope, the Alvin Clark telescope, the moon will fill the entire field of view of the eyepiece, and it'll actually be a more detailed view. It'll be kind of give you the feeling that you're hovering in the spacecraft over the eclipsed moon. So it's two different views in two different telescopes, or a couple of different types of telescopes.
Now, one last question. What happens if it rains on Sunday night?
If it's totally cloudy and raining, unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to see the eclipse. And at the State Museum, if this happens, we're going to actually show a stream, a webcast of the eclipse from an observatory that's got clear skies in the planetarium. So we'll be able to see the eclipse in that way.
Matthew Whitehouse, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much.
You've been listening to South...
Good God. No! The radio station only has one song. Okay, next day. Really? Is this game about talking? Oh. Okay. So the saturation or something went down. That's a plus. Oh, look, it got bigger. That's what she said. It got bigger, right? Oh, so I think if I do it right, it turns green.
For South Carolina Public Radio, this is South Carolina Focus. I'm Tut Underwood. Going through his collection, Harvey Teal of Columbia recalls interesting times putting it together. If this sounds like clinking glass, you're right. Teal is a bottle collector, one of about 300 in South Carolina.
Bottle collecting is an old hobby.
No, we're not doing the bottle collecting mumbo jumbo. Go the next day.
I'm Laura Hunsberger for South Carolina Public Radio. According to the state's Emergency Management Division, the entire state of South Carolina could experience significant flooding this weekend. The city of Columbia's Mayor Steve Benjamin says that although rain may not seem threatening, the roads may be dangerous.
12 inches of water can float a small SUV. You can lose complete control, and certainly large amounts of water can reveal other dangers that might be present beneath the water. So I want to encourage people to not try and cross what could be a very dangerous intersection.
For a list of potentially dangerous intersections, visit columbiasc.net. A toll-free telephone line has been established for questions about the severe weather conditions and will operate 24 hours a day while hazardous conditions persist. The number is 1-866-246-0133. In an emergency, call 911. For South Carolina Public Radio, I'm Laura Hunsberger.
You know, if this is South Carolina, why the fuck do we have European plugs in this house? I'm just curious.
I'm Laura Hunsberger for South Carolina Public.
Yesterday, nearly 7 inches of rain fell in Columbia, South Carolina, the most rain ever recorded in a single day in the state's capital. It followed days of heavy rains, leading to widespread flooding. At least 7 people have died in the state, 3 of them in Columbia. We reached the mayor, Steve Benjamin. It is still raining there, and he's been manning the city's emergency center for several days now. Good morning.
Good morning, Renee.
How much of your city is underwater at this moment in time?
I tell you what, oftentimes we say we haven't seen anything like this before. No one's seen anything like this before. We were down power line, a disrupted water and sewer system. Things are rough right now.
A lot of rescues being done?
Oh yes, we've had several hundred rescues. I will tell you, having our firefighters and police officers out wading into literally dangerous waters, down power lines, sinkholes, to rescue individuals, it's something we've never seen before, something we don't ever hope to see again. But I'll tell you, Renee, 150 years ago, the city was burned to the ground by General Sherman. We've risen like a phoenix from the ashes. Since then, turned into a very vibrant, dynamic city, and we'll come back from this too.
And rain expected to continue for the next day or two, so you'll be dealing with that.
I tell you what, we've learned to control the things we can control and continue to pray for better weather. Hopefully the rain goes away sooner rather than later. But in the meantime, I have to make sure that our people remain focused on the number one priority, and that's making sure that we come through this with as few casualties as possible.
That's Mayor Steve Benjamin of Columbia, South Carolina, where the rains are expected to keep on coming at least for another day or two. Mayor, thank you very much. Good luck to you.
Thank you for helping us get information out. God bless you.
Yesterday, nearly 7 inches of rain fell in Columbia, South Carolina, the most.
The fuck? You're just a fucking plant. I'm a person. I'm better than you. Well, if you were outside, you'd be dead. Can you overwater a plant? Are you drowning? Next day.
Right now we're looking at about 25,000 outages, but our utilities have been fantastic in trying to really turn that back up. Some areas are easier than others, but so much of what we need, this is heavy equipment that's on the roads. And when you look at that those high water vehicles and all of those things, they need to be able to get through in and out. We've worked very closely with Lexington County today. Right now we're looking at about 25,000 outages.
No! What in the fuck? Okay, I'm not going to listen to that stuff again. Hold on. Let's do this. All right, we're not going to listen to all that shit again. Here we go. All right, here we go. So, fill the water up. Turn that off. Do some music. Talk to it. All right. Next day. All right. Give it a little light. A little bit of music. Prune it. Water it. Fill up the glass. Turn it off. Next day. All right. Talk to it. I bet you'd like some good sun, wouldn't you? There we go. Bam. Prune it. Water it. Music. Okay.
For South
Next day. All right.
I'm Laura Hunsberger for South Carolina Public Radio. According to the state's Emergency Management Division, the entire state of South Carolina could experience significant flooding this weekend. The city of Columbia's Mayor Steve Benjamin says that although rain may not seem threatening, the roads may be dangerous.
12 inches of water can float a small SUV.
Yesterday, nearly 7 inches of rain fell in Columbia, South Carolina, the most rain ever recorded in a single day in the state's capital. It followed days of heavy rains, leading to widespread.
Right now we're looking at about 25,000 outages, but our utilities have been fantastic in trying to really turn that back up. Some areas are easier. Right now we're looking at about 25,000.
What? Why? The water is gross. Stop it. I don't think there's any way to win this, dudes. I don't think there's any way to win this. Like, you saw how big the plant was. It looked gorgeous. And then the next day it was like it was just a twig. It was blustering and cool, and then it was just like nothing. I don't think there's a way to win this. I don't even know what this is, but